Southern California, where recreation meets industry, where the old coexists with the new, where the it place lies just across the intersection from the displaced, where it's a fine line between having fun and surviving. And many believe the Pacific Ocean can wipe away our sins. And of course, everything is for sale. But amidst the iconic avenues, the bright city lights, and the ever-present network, a searcher can still discover solitude, simple beauty, and grandeur if he or she knows where to look. So, with that in mind, we loaded up our cameras, guitars, and surfboards and set off in search of the real Southern California, and this is what we found.
I like highly saturated colors, and I like to use high contrast because it really adds that gritty feeling and sort of a darker feeling. I guess I like the grittiness of urban society. I use the rule of thirds a lot. The rule of thirds is when you can split a photograph into 3 sections and you have the subject sort of off in one of the side sections. It draws your attention around the whole photograph because your subject isn't right in the middle.
Though packing for an expedition is never easy and can even be frustrating at times, our scenic drive up the coast was actually enjoyable. Once we set up camp, we had only a short time to settle in before we were off again to check out our home base for the next week, San Clemente.
Jihei is like a pensive cat, patiently waiting for the right moment. She'll sit and wonder and look and wait for that perfect, subtle moment that's often overlooked. The little details in the sand, the reflections in light, and the softness of the California coastline. Her photographs have a quietness to them, using solid colors, overexposure, and every time she makes a peaceful composition.
Since our campsite was just down the road, we had to visit the Surfing Heritage Foundation, home to the largest collection of historically significant surfboards in the world. Learning about the history of surfing made us all want to hit the waves, especially the high school surf PE group. So they ventured down to the world-famous trestles to enjoy a small south swell.
describe my photographic aesthetic on this expedition as sort of the absence of color. I explored a lot with grays and sepia tones because we did photograph on a lot of gloomy days. I choose my subjects by just whatever stands out. I like to look for geometric shapes or things that I could photograph in higher detail. With my macro lens, I got to experiment with looking into what the naked eye may not see. I also looked into the absence of light in photographing at night. It brought in aspects of blur and higher contrast, and I like to explore the different tones that come out at night versus during the day.
Stretching over 1,800 feet, the Huntington Beach Pier has come to symbolize Southern California culture. Named for oil magnate Henry E. Huntington, HB boasts one of the most diverse coastal cultures in our state, with the pier itself acting as the focal point. Surfing, volleyball, bike riding, busking, you'll find any and all of these here at the pier on any given day. No trip to the pier would be complete without visiting its underbelly, which provides an array of interesting subjects for photographers, including geometric shapes and barnacle-encrusted pilings. It also happens to be a pretty good surf spot. Just ask Drew and Luca.
My photographic aesthetic is really about finding little moments and unexpected compositions. I would walk around on the beach, or I'd walk around even a parking lot by the beach, and I would see what I connected to, and I would try to find a way to photograph it in a way that was relevant to myself. And I just liked seeing things that almost only my eyes could capture, and other people might just step on or walk by even. I was able to experiment with underwater cameras for the first time too, which allowed me to find subjects that I hadn't found before, like seaweed underwater, how that looked, because it had an entirely different perspective. Using an underwater camera, I was able to get really close to the waves. It was almost like the water was an opaque glass, and I could see things in a new way.
Thanks to the Bionic Ear, a small recording studio in Costa Mesa, we were able to give the musicians on our trip a chance to cut 3 tracks.
I met up with a king. He confessed his body was burning. I met up with a king. His body had began to rot, and he said, "Don't think less of me. I'm still the same man I used to be." But no one believed him. No one believed him. I once knew a pretty girl, and she was in love with the world.
Laguna Beach's tide pools offered an opportunity for reflection and exploration.
Her body, but never saw her mind, and he took everything she had kept, and then took everything else that was left. But no one believed her. No one believed her.
On the Portraits of California trip, I shot with a fisheye lens for the majority of the time. I like the feeling you get from when you use a fisheye, the kind of warping effect it has. It allows for a lot more to get into the image. There were different kinds of pictures or different kind of things to shoot, such as this plant right here, where the fisheye does a really good job of encompassing the whole plant. I really enjoyed shooting in Huntington Beach because you get both city life and beach life. I also shot long exposures. Long exposures allow you to see more than what you'd be able to see with a naked eye.
Since we are so grateful for the opportunity to go on expedition, we always make sure to give back to the communities we visit. Thanks to generous donations and countless volunteer groups such as ours, the Second Harvest Food Bank is responsible for providing meals to over 240,000 people in Orange County every month. Even though we were only there for one day, we all pitched in equally.
So Nick, what are you doing?
Boxing boxes. We boxed around, or taping boxes.
Nice.
We taped around 200 boxes.
I'm folding boxes. Gotta move your hand.
Cutting open boxes of beans and rice. Putting this on the table.
Refilling as she goes. I'm refilling her box as she goes.